is that I bring a heavy learning focus to therapy, and I tend to be very non-pathologizing. My clinical psychology training was really heavy in diagnosing people, in trying to figure out what was wrong with people, in identifying symptoms, and then it was very medically model-based, where you try and figure out what is wrong, and then you treat it to help somebody. And that way of approaching people's suffering never really gelled for me. I think it's a useful one, and I think it's one that is really applicable in a lot of situations, but it doesn't really align with how I work with people. So I tend to take much more of a strength space. I tend to think about what is the suffering that the person is in and what would help alleviate it. And I know that may seem like semantics, but for me, it puts me in a very different frame, which isn't so much a frame of what's wrong with you and how do we fix you, but is far more of a frame of where is the suffering in your life and what isn't working well, and how do we get you back in alignment with yourself, knowing who you are, finding your strengths, grounding yourself in the motivations and the needs that you have in your life, and how do we help make things better. So it's a slightly different focus than the training that I had. And it is also a very different focus than the training I had as a child. I mean, I grew up very much with what is wrong with you. And that mental frame for trying to help people. And I was, I think I've had every diagnosis in my family that you can imagine. I'm sure that I've been narcissistic. I know I've been passive aggressive. I know people have thought that I'm a little borderline sometimes. So I have had all kinds of diagnoses and labels thrown at me, and none of them have ever been useful. In fact, they've often compounded the problem for me. And I have found it far more useful to sort of embrace all diagnoses and see them as part of the human condition, and see them as things that most people suffer with at some point in their lives. And instead of this being something crazy and wrong and bad about you, it simply gives you access to empathizing with other people and joining together in shared humanity and helping each other out. And so I have a slightly different attitude, perhaps, towards the same content. And I think that comes from a lot of the training that I've done in communication work and in education. And then I integrate that with all the good training I got in clinical psychology as well.